Welcome to this explainer. Today we're stepping right into the boots of the Inquisitor, that fascinating analytical figure, just to witness the creeping, silent rot beneath the painted heights of this dark, purely performative kingdom. We're going on a real philosophical deep dive here into what happens when the very words holding a society together just completely start to fail.
So let's dive straight into this chilling, almost graphic novel-like world. Take a look at this quote. It tells us right out of the gate that this kingdom, it isn't made out of bricks and mortar. No, we're examining how society's so-called foundational rules are actually just a fragile skin, a literal lexical veil stretched over a hollow sham. The whole shebang is built entirely on words.
Section 1. The Illusion of Civilization.
When we actually look closely at how the Inquisitor documents civilization, we hit this incredibly chilling definition, a semantic construct. Basically, it means the citizens here have completely traded genuine human connection for these invisible agreements. They don't actually feel things anymore, right? They just use the word for the feeling. They've surrendered the actual raw meaning of life to the mere labels of life. And I think this brilliantly illustrates the jarring contrast between the kingdom's fresh paint of moral order and the decaying performative void hiding right underneath. On the surface, you've got morality, sure, but it's really just a designated time for weeping. And underneath that, there's this massive internal void where sanity itself is nothing more than a hollow performance. It's literally a society just going through the motions.
So the crucial takeaway here is that citizens are totally trapped in what's called an architecture of the uncanny. The source material refers to this as staged phenology. They're putting on a pretense of sorrow strictly for the cameras or, the glowing screens. It's an entirely performative reality. The words might sound right, but they mean absolutely nothing.
Moving on to Section 2. Architecture of the Void.
Imagine actually seeing this through the eyes of the Inquisitor. The Inquisitor is our honest witness in all of this. Tasked with looking past the surface, he's watching this silent rot just eating away at the purely hypothetical integrity of the kingdom's administration. He sees the old wood decaying right there behind the fresh paint. I mean, the source maps out the kingdom's false syntax so perfectly here. It shows exactly how these vital words have entirely lost their foundational meanings. Look at power, for instance. On the surface, they call it divine right, but actually, it's just a stone of truths the citizens collectively decided to drop and ignore. Sanity is supposedly this rigid pillar, but really, it's a hollow performance. And decency? It's been completely devoured by its own label. The social language hasn't just slipped, it has failed entirely. Now, you might be wondering, why just the number 1? Well, because it only takes the weight of one single, genuine laugh leaning against the wall to test the physical limits of these invisible agreements. One real moment is enough to bring down a million fake ones.
Which brings us to Section 3. The Uncanny Jester arrives.
See, the jester doesn't just show up to make jokes. He initiates this crazy triadic ritual. First, he weaponizes masks and mirrors. Then, he deliberately deconstructs the mechanical performance of order. And finally, he refracts the light of the uncanny. This ritual completely shatters the painted surface of all their assigned roles. It exposes the mechanical performance of the entire court for the total sham that it is.
Now here is where we get a massive twist. Instead of stepping in to stop the jester, our Inquisitor, this philological specialist, actually steps out of the shadows to audit this hollow sham. He is driven by what's called etymological desire. He genuinely wants to know if the kingdom's rules actually mean anything anymore. He steps right up to be the honest witness to the jester's chaos.
Section 4. The Communal Ontological Audit. Here we get this incredibly profound dialogue between action and observation. As the light of the uncanny dissolves that veil between them, just imagine the exchange. The jester laughs, right, and asks, "Is this mechanical performance your truth?" And the Inquisitor, calmly documenting the decay, replies, "No, but the void behind it is my scripture." The jester's chaotic truths meet the Inquisitor's solemn documentation, and suddenly you have this powerful unified challenge to consensus reality.
And honestly, this brilliantly illustrates why the Inquisitor is so dangerous to the status quo. The uncanny witness actually validates the void. By documenting it, he ensures the parasite of nobility can no longer just hide behind silk-dressed ambition. Even if the kingdom is completely numb, just the documented weight of its hollowness is enough to make the walls lean. By holding his certain breath alongside the fool, the Inquisitor transforms a weaponized smile into permanent, undeniable scripture. The uncanny guest, the jester, and the uncanny witness, the Inquisitor, they merge.
They aren't just isolated anomalies anymore. Actually, scratch that. They become a communal audit. They force the kingdom to finally look at its own true reflection.
Which leads us to our final act, Section 5, Collapse of Social Language. Look at this stark contrast for a second. The staged phonology of grief completely breaks down when it's forced to look into the mirror of realized truth. You have the bereaved basically just performing grief for glowing screens, right? But then you have the auditor standing right there, translating that performance into raw, unavoidable reality. The fake social language of the court simply cannot compute this reality.
And here is the total fallout. The mechanical performance of authority just devolves into these desperate, meaningless gestures, as semantic paralysis literally freezes the court. The false syntax fails entirely. Authority cannot even categorize the gesture's weaponized smile. It totally breaks their logic. There's this fascinating detail where the High Minister, caught right in the void, attempts this desperate liturgy of simply straightening a cuff. It's the only mechanical performance he has left to cling to.
And then we witness the absolute ultimate anatomy of silence, the Lord Chamberlain staring out into the middle distance. It's an ocular confession that the signifier of sanity has finally collapsed under its own hollowness. He is looking directly into the space where nothing is, suddenly realizing that the whole kingdom was just a joke half told.
So, I want to leave you with this final, truly provocative thought from the Inquisitor's perspective. Think about the invisible agreements holding up your own reality, your own glowing screens. What happens when you look past your own painted heights and realize the foundation might just be a hollow performance? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating audit with me today. Take care and keep questioning the syntax.